History remembers the headlines. We find the bylines. This is the unsung. When you think of forensic science, you probably picture high-tech DNA labs, glowing luminol, fingerprint dust, and yellow crime scene tape. It's a world of microscopes and test tubes. But the foundation of modern crime scene investigation wasn't built in a laboratory. It was built in a dollhouse. The mind behind it was Frances Glessner Lee, a Chicago socialite born into the immense wealth of the international Harvester family. She never attended college, never worked as a detective, and never performed an autopsy. Yet, in the 1940s and 50s, she became the single greatest driving force behind the creation of forensic medicine in America. So how was a woman in her position, an heiress with no formal credentials, able to revolutionize an entire field? And why has her extraordinary story been reduced to a curious footnote? Frances Glessner Lee was born in 1878 into a world of extreme wealth, but also extreme restriction. This was the Gilded Age, a time when a woman of her class had a future mapped out for her. She would marry well, host lavish parties, and expertly manage grand households. A career, especially in the grim world of medicine and law, was simply unthinkable. While her brother went off to Harvard to receive a world-class education, she was tutored at home, her curriculum tailored for domestic life. But Lee was fiercely, insatiably curious. She devoured Sherlock Holmes stories and developed a fascination with medicine and criminology, fields that were utterly off-limits to her. Her early life followed the expected path. She married, had children, and endured a disastrous, unhappy union that ended in divorce. But then, a turning point. Upon her brother's death, she inherited the family fortune. Now in her 50s, financially independent and free from social constraints, she finally had the means to pursue her lifelong passion. She sought out a mentor, Dr. George Burgess McGrath, a brilliant medical examiner and a professor at Harvard Medical School. He became her gateway into the world she'd only dreamed of. Through McGrath, Lee witnessed a shocking reality. Death investigations were a disaster. Police officers, often with no medical training, would trample through crime scenes, moving bodies, contaminating evidence, and jumping to flawed conclusions. Deaths were routinely misclassified as accidents or suicides when they were, in fact, murders. Dr. McGrath showed her the chaos. Lee, with her sharp mind and newfound resources, decided she would be the one to fix the system, using craftsmanship where credentials had failed. Her solution was as ingenious as it was unexpected. Lee's pivotal contribution to forensics became known as the nutshell Studies of Unexplained Death. These weren't just any models. They were 20 exquisitely detailed, miniature crime scenes, built to a perfect 1/12 scale. Each diorama was a chillingly accurate replica of a real, unsolved case that had stumped investigators. These were not toys, they were tools for the mind. The level of detail was obsessive, almost maddening. Lee was a master craftswoman. She hand-rolled tiny cigarettes to be the exact length and brand found at a scene. She knitted microscopic stockings with custom-made, pin-sized knitting needles. She commissioned a locksmith to create miniature, fully functional locks and keys for the tiny doors. The bloodstains, made from red nail polish, were carefully spattered to replicate real arterial spray or pooling. Bullet holes were perfectly placed pinpricks in walls, their trajectory calculated. The victims themselves, tiny dolls, were posed with a disturbing accuracy that reflected their cause of death. The subtle discoloration of the skin indicating poison, the position of the limbs suggesting a fall versus a struggle. She spent thousands of dollars and countless hours on each diorama, ensuring every single detail was a potential clue. Nothing was random. A slightly ajar window, a half-eaten meal, the calendar on the wall, it all meant something. But these weren't just for display. They were the centerpiece of a revolutionary teaching method. Lee hosted week-long seminars at Harvard for the nation's top detectives and medical examiners. She would present them with a nutshell, give them 90 minutes and a flashlight, and pose a simple, haunting question: what happened here? The goal was not to solve the crime in the room, but to train the mind. She taught them to convict the guilty, clear the innocent, and find the truth in a nutshell. The dioramas forced these hardened investigators to slow down, to observe methodically, to question their assumptions, and to see the narrative hidden within the physical evidence. They learned to distinguish a suicide from a staged homicide, an accidental fall from a violent push. Her work prefigured the entire modern concept of crime scene reconstruction. She taught that every contact leaves a trace, long before that phrase became a forensic mantra. Her influence didn't stop with the nutshells. Lee used her immense fortune to endow Harvard's Department of Legal Medicine, the very first of its kind in the country. She bankrolled libraries, filling them with essential forensic textbooks for police departments that couldn't afford them. Her work was so respected that in 1943, she was appointed an honorary captain in the New Hampshire State Police, becoming the first woman in American history to hold such a title. The nutshell studies are so effective, they are still used today as training tools by law enforcement. So why isn't Captain Lee a household name? Why was her legacy so easily erased? Her erasure was a quiet, insidious product of the very system she sought to reform, rooted in gendered professional exclusion and what we could call the hobby label. Because she wasn't a doctor, a sworn detective, or a university academic, her groundbreaking work was often condescendingly dismissed as a rich woman's hobby. Her tools, miniatures and dioramas, were seen as feminine crafts, the stuff of dollhouses, not serious scientific instruments. Male contemporaries who were systematizing forensic science received the credit and the academic accolades, while Lee was often portrayed as a wealthy, eccentric patron who just happened to be good with her hands. Furthermore, Lee's influence was primarily through teaching and philanthropy, not through academic publications. She didn't write peer-reviewed papers that could be cited and archived. Her legacy lived in the minds of the hundreds of detectives she trained. As forensics evolved, becoming more technical and reliant on DNA, her hands-on, observational approach was romanticized as quaint rather than being recognized as the foundational bedrock upon which all that new science was built. The science of what to test for is useless if you don't have the observational skill to find the evidence in the first place. That is what Lee taught. Today, thankfully, Frances Glessner Lee is being rediscovered. Her nutshells are being preserved and exhibited as both works of art and monuments of scientific history. Documentaries and books are finally telling her full story, correcting the record. She represents a powerful and timeless truth. Innovation doesn't always come from inside the system. Sometimes, the most revolutionary changes come from a brilliant outsider, someone who sees the system's flaws with fresh eyes and uses their own unique, unconventional skills to fix them. Frances Glessner Lee's legacy teaches us that expertise can wear many faces, even that of a society heiress with a magnifying glass and a dollhouse. Who are the other unsung outsiders you know of? People who transformed a field from the margins? Share their stories in the comments below. And for more stories of the hidden figures behind history, make sure to subscribe to The Unsung.